Hello everyone and welcome to another Tempo Storm Wild Meta video where we highlight decks and strategies you can use to become legendary on the Hearthstone Wild Ladder. In this video, we're shining a spotlight on MECH HANDBUFF PALADIN. After the release of Saviors of Uldum and the balance change to Barnes, the Wild format landscape has changed considerably, and in a brave new world of Secret Mage and OTK Warlock, this new Paladin deck has emerged to build massive threats quickly and give the meta a run for its money. How does the latest dark horse of Wild operate? Join us as we break down how the deck works and review its strengths and weaknesses. Before we begin, be sure to subscribe to the Tempo Storm Hearthstone YouTube channel to keep up to date on the latest developments in the Wild format. Now, let's get started. MECH HANDBUFF PALADIN is an evolution of hand buff strategies introduced in the Mean Streets of Gadgetzan expansion. Built around Grime Street Outfitter and Smuggler's Run, HANDBUFF PALADIN usually focused on building minions in hand like Echoing Ooze and Serenite Chain Gang that multiply on the board. The deck's mid-range approach never gained much competitive traction, but after the release of the Boomsday project, players started to build the deck around mechs in order to explore the synergy between the new magnetic mechanic and Gadgetzan's hand buffs, since the magnetic minions keep their buff stats when you attach them to minions on board. With the rise of the mech event, the mana cost buffs to Crystology and Glowstone Technician and the release of Snip Snap have brought the deck to a critical mass, making it easier than ever to climb the ranks to Legend and live the hand buff dream. MECH HANDBUFF PALADIN's goal is to build large threats over the course of a few turns, then attack the opponent relentlessly. To get there, you'll spend the first couple of turns setting things up. To get things started, you'll want to play a first-turn Crystology in order to draw crucial minions like Grime Street Outfitter and Galvanizer. Other early plays include playing Smuggler's Run or Grime Street Outfitter to buff minions in hand, or playing durable mechs like Shielded Minibot and Annoyotron to manage the board. After turn 3, the deck can go off by playing Mech Warper and Galvanizer to reduce the cost of other mechs in hand, then attaching multiple copies of buffed Glowtrons, Skaterbots, Snip Snaps, and Annoyo modules to your minions at once. Since many of these minions have Taunt, developing them neutralizes opposing aggression, and using Skaterbot to give a mech rush is an option to kill opposing minions as well. In the following turns, you'll be attaching buffed War Gears and Zilliax to push even more damage. If the buffed minion is a flying machine, its Wind Fury doubles your damage potential and can often kill your opponent in one shot. If you have a slow start or your minions are cleared from the board, Divine Favor and Glowstone Technician give you the potential to rebuild quickly. If your mechs are allowed to snowball, things can get out of control quickly to make short work of your opponent. Since the deck relies on specific synergies to build threats quickly, you're looking for specific cards in the Mulligan to achieve your setup. Crystology, Mech Warper, and Galvanizer are the highest win rate cards to keep in the Mulligan almost regardless of the matchup, and a first-turn Crystology is the strongest first play you can make, so you'll want to mulligan for these cards aggressively. If you already have at least one of these cards, you can consider keeping other early game setup cards like Grime Street Outfitter, Smuggler's Run, or early minions like Glowtron or Shielded Minibot. With these rules in mind, other considerations can be made based on the matchup. Against slow control classes like Priest and Warlock, you can keep War Gear and Flying Machine if you already have Mech Warper and Galvanizer, since they can help deal damage very quickly. The same is true for Skaterbot and Annoyo module against Mage and Paladin, since they can help you mount a defense against aggression and manage the board. With its ability to build massive threats quickly, MECH HANDBUFF PALADIN has strong odds against anything with the right opening, but tends to fall flat without it. Because of this, its matchup spread is close to 50-50 against most decks, but there are some exceptions. Aggressive decks that can't deal with large minions effectively, such as Secret Mage and Odd Paladin, tend to be good matchups as long as you can establish a large taunt to avoid face damage. On the other hand, decks with effective removal against big minions, such as Even Shamans with Devolve and Jade Druids with Poison Seeds and Naturalize, are relatively poor matchups since they can neutralize big threats early and leave the Paladin scrambling to rebuild. MECH HANDBUFF PALADIN is a powerful deck, but its all-in approach has a few flaws that you can exploit if you're playing against it. To start, because of its reliance on specific synergies, it behaves like a combo deck, but unlike other combo decks in Hearthstone, it has limited card draw and has to pull off its combo early in order to be competitive. An awkward draw without Mech Warper or Galvanizer can be too slow to put up a fight against aggro decks or apply pressure against control and combo decks. If you're playing aggro against handbuff, it's important to establish your own board early to overwhelm them and take advantage of their lack of removal. Another key weakness is to specific removal and silence effects. The deck can sink several cards into a single threat, and losing that threat to cards like Devolve, Poison Seeds, and Plague of Flames is a major setback. If you're playing a more controlling deck, Take an inventory of what your removal and silence options are and dig for them aggressively. As a rule, when playing against this deck and other aggressive Paladin decks in general, if you manage their minions closely and make it hard for them to establish a foothold, you'll have a fighting chance. Even with these drawbacks, MECH HANDBUFF PALADIN can have an explosive start with the right draw and pull wins out of nowhere. MECH HANDBUFF PALADIN takes the power of MECH Warper and Galvanizer's cost reduction to the next level, combining them with handbuff and magnetic synergies to build overwhelming threats in the blink of an eye. With so much explosive potential, it's capable of standing toe-to-toe with the strongest decks in Wild. It's definitely worth trying on the Wild Legend climb, or worth paying attention to if you're going to be playing against it. If this breakdown was useful for you, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with our Wild Hearthstone content, and let us know in the comments what decks you'd like us to feature next. Thanks for watching!